My husband cut my hair out of jealousy the night before my job interview. I woke up to Strands on the pillow. "You're too pretty to work with men," he said casually. "My boss called that morning. We still want you, with or without hair." I walked into the office bald, but proud. His face when he saw the news headline? Priceless. It started like any other Thursday evening in our quiet neighborhood in Lexington, Kentucky. The air outside had the crisp chill of late October, and the leaves in our yard were turning burnt orange and deep crimson. I had just finished ironing my blazer, setting it carefully over the back of the chair, trying to keep everything pristine for what was supposed to be one of the most important days of my life. At 42, starting over wasn't something I imagined I'd be doing. Most of the people I knew had already cemented their careers, found their footing. But I'd spent most of my adult life in the shadow of someone else's ambition. Myron, my husband, ran his own auto repair shop. He worked long hours and came home with black-stained fingers and the smell of motor oil clinging to his clothes. He liked his routine, his habits, and, though I hadn't wanted to admit it for years, he liked me small. Not physically small, but small in the way that made him feel bigger. More in control. I wasn't always like this. I had dreams once, the kind that didn't involve standing behind the register at the same local accounting office for 18 years. The kind that made me excited to wake up. But those dreams got quieter with each year that passed. Myron had a way of making them sound silly. He didn't outright discourage me. That wasn't his style. It was more in the little things, the way his eyes would shift when I talked about my HR courses at night school. The sarcastic chuckle when I told him I had applied for a job in Nashville. The way he asked, "So what, you're gonna leave me behind and go play boss lady with a bunch of men?" I used to think he was joking. Or insecure. Or just having a hard time adjusting to change. But that night, I realized it was something darker. I had been exhausted from prepping for the interview. Everything was set. Clothes laid out. Resume printed. I even had a pair of new shoes I hadn't dared wear yet, tucked neatly under the bed. I washed my hair, dried it gently, and braided it loosely before bed so it'd fall softly in the morning. I remember catching a glimpse of myself in the mirror, tired, yes, but proud. Nervous. Hopeful. Like someone on the edge of something new. I went to bed before Myron. He was in the garage when I drifted off. I heard his heavy boots come in sometime past midnight. He didn't say anything. Just climbed in beside me, the mattress sinking under his weight. I didn't think much of it. But when I woke up, the first thing I noticed was the cold on my scalp. At first, I thought maybe my braid had come undone. That maybe I'd slept funny. But then my fingers reached back and touched uneven strands. Patches. Clumps. The second thing I noticed was the pillow covered in hair. My hair. My stomach turned before my brain could catch up. I stumbled to the mirror in the bathroom, heart hammering against my ribs. My breath caught in my throat. It was worse than I imagined. The back of my head had been butchered. Jagged. Like someone had taken kitchen scissors and cut aimlessly in the dark. My hair had been thick and dark, down past my shoulders. Now it looked like something gnawed at it in the night. Tears came so fast I didn't realize I was crying until they blurred my vision. I didn't need to ask who did it. I knew. I walked back to the bedroom, slow and shaky, and stood in the doorway. He was awake now, half sitting in bed, propped on one elbow. He looked at me, not startled, not apologetic. Just calm. "You're too pretty to be around men like that," he said. Like it was a compliment. Like he'd done me a favor. I couldn't speak. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. I think something broke in me in that moment. Something I hadn't even realized was there until it snapped. He rolled over and went back to sleep like it was nothing. I didn't go back in that room. I stood in the hallway, heart pounding, eyes wet, hands trembling. I felt naked, like I'd been violated in the most intimate way. And the worst part wasn't the hair. It was the fact that the man I had loved for 15 years did this while I slept. Quietly. Coldly. I called Reese, my best friend since college. It took 3 tries to get the words out. "He cut my hair," I whispered. "What?" Her voice was sharp. Alarmed. "Who?" "Myron." A pause. "You're ing kidding me." "I'm not. I don't know what to do. Do you still want to go to the interview?" "I don't know if I can." There was silence on the other end, then something in her voice shifted. Fierce. Unapologetic. "You're going. You're not letting him win." I hesitated. "Come over," she said. "We'll fix it. Or shave it. Whatever you need. But you're going." I did go. I wrapped a scarf around my head and drove to her place. She took one look at me, saw the devastation in my face, and didn't say a word. Just pulled me into a hug and let me cry. Later, in her bathroom, we stood silently as she ran the clippers through what was left. We didn't talk much. There wasn't anything to say. When it was done, I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman staring back. Bald, pale, eyes red from crying. But under all that, there was something else. A quiet defiance. A flicker of strength I hadn't seen in years. I was still going. We drove in silence for the first 40 minutes. Reese had filled a thermos with coffee and handed it to me like it was a lifeline. I cradled it in both hands, barely sipping. My stomach was still twisted in knots. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting soft golden light over the roads outside of Lexington as we headed south toward Nashville. I stared out the window, watching the trees blur past. I felt exposed, stripped of the one thing that made me feel like myself. It wasn't just about the hair. It was the violation. The knowing that someone I trusted, someone I loved, had waited until I was vulnerable to destroy something I took pride in. And yet, somewhere under the fear and shame and shock, there was a kind of clarity I hadn't felt in years. Myron had always been possessive in subtle ways. He never told me not to work, not directly. He didn't say I couldn't go back to school. He said things like, "Don't overdo it, Joe," or "Aren't you tired enough without chasing something that's just a dream?" Whenever I mentioned changing jobs, he'd raise an eyebrow, ask if I really thought a place would want someone my age. He couched his doubts as concern. He disguised his fear as love. I hadn't seen it for what it was. But now I couldn't unsee it. We pulled into a gas station somewhere near Bowling Green. Reese handed me her phone while she filled the tank. "Check your email. Just in case they sent anything this morning." I opened my inbox, fingers numb. There it was. Subject: "Looking forward to seeing you today." From Valerie King, Director of Human Resources, Central Logistics Group. It was short and professional, but something about the tone felt warm. I reread it twice. Somehow, it gave me just enough courage to keep going. We arrived in Nashville 2 hours later, just before 10. The interview was scheduled for 11:30. Reese pulled into the lot of the glassy, modern office building and parked. "You ready?" she asked. I stared at my reflection in the side mirror. The woman looking back at me had no makeup on, no hair to frame her face. Just pale skin, a long scar near her right temple I'd never noticed before, and eyes that looked like they'd seen too much in too little time. I tied a light scarf around my head. It was plain, cream-colored with a faint floral design. "I'm ready enough," I said. Reese squeezed my hand. "I'll be right here when you're done." Walking into that building felt like walking into another life. The lobby was sleek and buzzing with people in suits and headsets. I must have looked completely out of place, dressed neatly, but with a scarf over my head and an expression that couldn't hide what I'd been through. The receptionist looked up and offered a tight smile. "Can I help you?" I told her my name. Her eyes flicked to the computer. "Oh, Ms. King will be right with you. Please have a seat." I sat, trying to steady my breathing. The minutes stretched out like hours. Then I heard heels clicking on tile. A tall woman in a slate gray dress approached me. She was elegant, her salt and pepper hair pulled back in a smooth twist. "Jolene? I'm Valerie King. We spoke on the phone." She extended her hand. When I stood and took it, she held my gaze. "I heard what happened," she said, softly enough that no one else could hear. My stomach flipped. I didn't mean for anyone to." She raised a hand gently. "Don't apologize. And don't worry. We want to hear about you, not your hair. Come on in." The interview lasted nearly an hour. I was shaky at first, my voice catching when I tried to answer the first question. But something in Valerie's demeanor, professional, but kind, settled me. Soon I was speaking clearly, even passionately, about my past work, my coursework, my ideas about people and workplace conflict, about building teams that respected each other. They asked about challenges I'd faced. I paused, and then, for the first time, I said it. "My greatest challenge has been learning to recognize when someone doesn't want you to grow." There was silence in the room. But it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt like something had landed. I didn't go into detail. I didn't need to. I left the building dazed, but lighter. When I got into the car, Reese raised her eyebrows. "Well, I think it went okay," I said, voice barely above a whisper. She grinned. "You didn't just survive. You showed up. That's more than okay." We started the drive back to Lexington just as the sun dipped low, throwing gold and purple across the sky. I rested my head on the window, the tension in my shoulders finally starting to ease. But going home, that was the part one hadn't figured out. Because whatever happened next, whether I got the job or not, I knew I couldn't go back to life as it was. Not after that night. Not after him. The drive home from Nashville was quiet at first. Reese didn't push me to talk, and I was thankful for that. I stared out the window, thinking about how surreal the day had been. Less than 12 hours earlier, I'd woken up to pieces of myself scattered on a pillow, cut away by the man who swore to love me. And now, I'd walked into a corporate interview with my head bare and my dignity somehow intact. Somewhere along I-65, I finally broke the silence. I don't think I can go back home. Reese kept her eyes on the road. You don't have to. Not tonight. She didn't ask why. She didn't need to. She knew. She had seen the look in my eyes that morning, the look of someone whose safety had been violated in the place they should have felt safest. No need for explanations when the truth had already been carved out in silence. We got back into Lexington around 7 p.m. She pulled into the driveway of her townhouse on Limestone. Cozy, 2 bedrooms, a small back deck, and always smelling like sandalwood candles and whatever she had simmering in the kitchen. It was the kind of space that felt warm just stepping inside. I followed her in, exhausted to the bone. You want wine? She asked, already pulling 2 glasses from the cabinet. I nodded. God, yes. We sat at her kitchen table while the scent of roasted vegetables wafted from the oven. She poured us each a glass, and we clinked without ceremony. I don't know what I'm going to say to him, I admitted, my voice hoarse. Or if I'm even going to say anything. You don't owe him a damn thing, she said. Not after what he did. I took a long sip. I keep thinking, he cut my hair while I slept. That wasn't a loss of temper. That wasn't a moment of rage. That was planned. Cold. Calculated. Reese nodded slowly, setting her glass down. That's abs, Joe. The words settled on the table like a thick fog. I hadn't let myself say it out loud, not even in my mind. But hearing her say it so plainly made something click. I spent the night in her guest room, curled beneath a quilt that her aunt had sewn years ago. I didn't sleep much. My body was still running on a mix of shock, adrenaline, and disbelief. At some point, I got up and went to the bathroom. I turned the light on softly and stared at myself in the mirror. No scarf. No makeup. Just me. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. I looked vulnerable, yes. But also clear. The next morning, I texted Myron. Just one line. I need space. I'm safe. Don't come looking for me. He didn't reply right away. I set my phone down and walked away from it, letting it buzz in the other room. Reese cooked us eggs and sourdough toast, and we ate on the couch with the TV on low, watching local news without really watching. Eventually, I picked my phone back up. For messages. Myron, what the HLL does that mean? Myron, are you with Reese? Myron, you need to stop making this bigger than it is. Myron, call me. I stared at the screen, heart thumping. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened Facebook, navigated to my settings, and changed my relationship status to private. Then I blocked him. I didn't want to make a scene online, but I needed to draw the line. A few hours later, something unexpected happened. My phone rang, and it wasn't a number I recognized. Nashville area code. I hesitated, then answered. Hello? Hi, Jolene? This is Valerie King. I stood up instinctively, nerves firing. Hi, yes. Hi. I wanted to call you directly, not through HR. I hope that's okay. Of course. She paused. I wanted you to know we're offering you the job. Official offer letter will come through later today. My breath caught in my chest. You're serious? She chuckled lightly. Completely. We were impressed before you ever walked in the door. But yesterday, you showed more strength and presence than most people manage on their best day. I'd be lucky to have you on my team. Tears welled up in my eyes again, but this time they were warm. Thank you. Truly. There's one more thing, she added. A local paper in Nashville picked up your story. They didn't mention your name, but they know someone walked into our building bald after an act of domestic violence. They're trying to reach out. I won't say anything without your consent, but I thought you should know. I sat down slowly. They want to talk to me? Yes. It's completely your call. There's no pressure. I hung up after we talked through a few logistics, and Reese looked at me across the room, waiting. Well, I got the job. Her face broke into a grin. HLL, yes, you did. I laughed. For the first time in what felt like years, I really laughed. But then I told her about the reporter. About the article. Her expression turned cautious. That's a lot. Are you ready for that kind of attention? I don't know. Because truthfully, I didn't. It wasn't just about Myron anymore. It was about the idea of him. The idea that women should shrink themselves to fit a man's comfort. The notion that ambition is dangerous. That independence is betrayal. If I shared my story, even anonymously, maybe someone else would read it and see themselves. Maybe someone who hadn't had their hair cut yet, but was already feeling smaller every day, might see the warning signs. Still, I wasn't sure. My hands trembled even thinking about it. That evening, I did something I'd put off for too long. I drove back to the house. Reese offered to come with me, but I told her no. I needed to go alone. I pulled into the driveway just as the porch light flicked on. Myron's truck was parked crooked. He must have been pacing. When I stepped out of the car, he came to the front door. He looked tired. His eyes were bloodshot. He hadn't shaved. There was a moment where he just stared at me, almost like he didn't recognize me. I walked up the steps and stood 2 feet away. "I'm not coming back," I said quietly. His face twitched. "Joe, come on. I'm not here to fight. I'm just here to get my things." He opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked around, like he didn't know what to say next. "You don't have to make this permanent," he finally muttered. "We can fix this." "You planned it," I said, voice breaking. "You waited until I was asleep. You didn't yell. You didn't argue. You picked up scissors and decided to erase part of me." He looked away. Shame, or maybe just regret that it didn't go how he wanted. "I needed to feel like myself again," I said. "And I do now, even without the hair." He didn't stop me as I walked past him, up the stairs, and began filling a duffel bag with clothes and keepsakes. I left most of the furniture. I didn't want things. I wanted freedom. When I came back down, he was sitting on the bottom step, staring at the wall. "I didn't think you'd leave." I stopped for a moment. I used to think that too. Then I walked out. I didn't cry on the drive back to Reese's that night. I thought I would. I expected to fall apart the second I pulled away from that house, from that man, from the 15 years I gave him. But I didn't. It was quiet in the car. The city lights blurred through the windshield as I pulled onto her street, and for once, the silence didn't feel heavy. It felt still. Reese was in the living room waiting for me, sitting cross-legged on the couch with a mug of tea. She looked up when I walked in, gave me a long once-over, then nodded. "You did it," she said. I nodded back. She didn't ask how it went. She didn't need to. Over the next few days, I packed up the rest of my things with her help and made arrangements. I put in my notice at the accounting office. My boss, Mr. Blaine, didn't seem all that surprised. Maybe he'd seen it in me already, that I was halfway out the door long before I ever handed him the letter. The offer letter from Central Logistics Group came through just as promised. The salary was even higher than I expected. Full benefits. A relocation package. A start date in 2 weeks. Everything moved fast after that. I found a small apartment just east of downtown Nashville. It wasn't fancy, worn wood floors, old windows that stuck, but it was mine. The first place I picked entirely for myself. Reese helped me move, then left me with a bottle of wine and a list of her favorite restaurants. The first few nights were quiet. Lonelier than I admitted. But the quiet was clean. No one was walking on eggshells. No one was muttering sarcastic jabs under their breath. I could breathe. Work was intense. I was in meetings all day, onboarding, learning systems, helping resolve conflicts I didn't create. It was tiring, but good tiring. The kind that fills your head, not drains your soul. Valerie checked in often. Not in a hovering way. Just enough to remind me that she respected me. Trusted me. About 2 weeks in, she asked me if I'd given any more thought to the press request. The local reporter still wanted to talk to me, she said, off the record, even anonymous if I preferred. "I think you have something powerful to say," Valerie told me. "But it's your voice. You decide when and how and if you ever want to use it." That night, I sat at my kitchen table staring at the reporter's email. Her name was Janelle Mercer, and she'd written a short, compassionate message. No pressure, just an invitation. I didn't respond that night, but 2 days later, I did. We met at a quiet coffee shop tucked into the corner of East Nashville. I wore a plain denim jacket, no scarf. By then, the first fuzz of my hair was growing back, soft and uneven. I didn't bother hiding it. Janelle brought a tiny recorder and a notepad, but mostly, she listened. I told her everything carefully, steadily. I didn't give Myron's name. I didn't want revenge in the traditional sense. I wanted something deeper than that. I wanted the truth to land in the hearts of the people who needed to hear it. She asked me near the end, "What do you hope people take from this?" I paused, sipped my lukewarm coffee. "I hope some woman out there reads this and realizes that love doesn't have to look like silence. Or fear. Or someone cutting away parts of you until you don't recognize yourself anymore." She nodded, and I saw something in her eyes. Recognition. Maybe she'd known a Myron too. The article went live a week later. They titled it, "She Showed Up Bald and Unbroken, One Woman's Story of Survival and Reinvention." I wasn't named. No identifying details. But it spread. People shared it. Commented. Said things like, "I needed this today, and I didn't know how to explain what I've been going through until now." It made its way back to Lexington too. Small towns always talk. It didn't take long for Myron's name to come up, even without it being printed.